So how you doing today, Damon?
I'm great, Joe. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, wonderful. I am excited to talk to you about Apache Junction and really just about your work in general. Um, and first off, you are a producer. Obviously, that name, when general, viewers of entertainment, they say producer credit, there's a lot of hats involved with that. So I'm curious, like with the films that you've produced, what do you generally handle? I know, I
Sure.
think you handle like the money side of things as a producer, but
Yeah.
what do you generally handle and what led you to doing that?
Okay, great. So, as a producer, I'm usually like the produced by credit, which is, I'm taking a concept from, a small log line or synopsis. Um, and then what I'll do is I'll take that concept and I'll ask the distributor, hey, what works? I'll ask the sales company what works, what's good here. And then we basically are creating from scratch. Okay. And we're seeing it all the way through from the beginning of the idea to the creation of the script, packaging of the director, packaging of the cast, all while we're working with the distributor. Okay. And then from there, that's all trickling down to where the finance starts kicking in. All right. So as a produced by, I'm overseeing the finance, but I'm bringing in executive producers all the way around me that are helping me on the financial side so that I can create this company. So for each of our films, we create the company. I'm the guy, I create the company, the IP that we already established. It goes into the company. And then we're just creating this, and it's all we work it all the way through finance, through production, through delivery, and then all the way through collecting, because we're on these movies for like, people will see a movie and they think it's over with, but no, it's for me, it's like a 2 to 3 year process, sometimes longer, because the movie will continue to sell. And like, we have to stay on it. Like, hey, where are those payments and where are those payments? So it's never ending.
That's
Um,
that's crazy to hear that side of it. So do you have to handle the distribution going forward regardless of when it releases, like everything as far as streaming distribution?
yeah. So what's great is I have very, very solid partners. Like Saban is my third movie with Saban. Um, they're taking care of I don't have to think about the distribution side. They're all over it for me. They basically provide me with like, this is how it's going to go, and I rely on them. They just have such an amazing track record that I rely on them. I'm just like, okay, what do you need? What do you need from me? Or how, like, you know I have to provide them with the correct marketing materials, like the galleries. I have to shoot galleries and do things a certain way. So that's what I provide from them. And then I just let them do it. Now, overseas, it's the same way. So we sell, like, let's say there's, 45 territories. There's more or less, whatever, penning. We're selling it to a distributor, like an Italian distributor. And then they're distributing it. We don't really have a say in anything. But sometimes what happens is like a film, Ghost House, that I did. You know, it was one of the top grossing films in the theaters in Thailand. And we made that movie for not very much money. So you see these things. We don't have control over it, but that's the distribution game. I just have to stay on point and stay on budget.
Okay, and then how much studying do you have to do of like other projects and how well they're doing in order to kind of judge your bottom line and what your goal is? Or is it generally based on what your production budget is and then projected earnings?
Okay, yes, it's about the projected earnings with paired with what is the physical cost. So we have to run a math problem, and we basically say, this is the cost of the film, and this is the cost of the proposed actors. This is the cost of post. And then we take that formula right there, and then we're talking to the sales agent, and then they're giving us an ask and a take. So a take is the low end, and then the ask is like what we're gonna ask. So and then not to mention there's all these like residual payments and sales fees. So let's say our budget is like $1 million. That's what we're spending to make the movie. But if I only sell the movie for $1 million, I'm going to lose money because of the sales fee, the SAG residuals. If you're going all union, you got to pay. There's all kinds of residuals. So you really have to like back into it. And the math problem is very important. And you do that with the sales company. So I use Filmbridge International. They're like my go-to. They're my business partners. Jordan Dykstra, Ellen Wander. They're phenomenal. They're like one of the best sales companies I've ever dealt with.
So what attracted you to getting into the production business? Were you looking to get into entertainment in general, or were you just more of a business guy and you were like, this is a good way, and basically by studying the money, you realized that this was a good business for you to jump into?
Sure. So I had been in finance and real estate, back before the crash before the real estate crash, like 2008. Then we had the real estate crash and I kind of like lost myself. I had a past history of entertainment. I had done fashion like for a long time, and I wanted to get back into the world of like entertainment or fashion or something like that and merge it with business. My sister was working at an agency, CAA. She was a logistics coordinator. And I decided to move to LA on a whim. Like, I'm just like, you know what? I need to get out of Riverside County was distressed. I like lost everything, literally everything. And, I moved to LA to stay in my sister's, like, she had like a 400 square foot studio. And I slept on a wooden floor for like 9 months. Trying to figure out what to do. Like I remember this, like we're just eating like canned beans and stuff, it's like we ate hardly, we were the poor kids come up here barely surviving. And at that time I had a real estate investor called me up and is like, hey, I want to do something in Hollywood. This is one of my dearest friends now, Charlie Quinn. And so he bought me cameras and he bought me sound package and he gave me money and said, let's do something. And I was like, well, I don't really know. Like, okay. So then I go on Craigslist and I hire like a camera operator. And then the camera operator tells me like, well, who's doing, your DIT? And I'm like, oh, I need a DIT person. So I like winged it, but I also realized that I don't know anything about this. So that's when I decided I better go study with somebody and learn the ropes. And that's when I met Ryan R. Johnson. And he took me under his wing and talked to me about packaging, financing. How do I put something together? Even like daunting, you don't really understand, like, how does the company work? How are the splits? How does it work with investors? Like, so he really took me under his wing and, showed me the ropes. And I thank him every day for it. And that really got me started. That put me on my path. And then I made that movie behind me, A Stranger in Paradise. That was my first movie I made. And in all places, I decided to make my first movie in Thailand.
And
Like,
that's the one that you had said it made the most money in Thailand when it opened, right?
yeah, no, it actually was this one. It was called Ghost House.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, see, so what happened is after I made this movie, then the largest production company in Southeast Asia we partnered. They bought my US company. And then I started making movies full time in just Southeast Asia. So I probably made like 15 movies in Thailand.
Were you still living in Cali or did you move to Thailand to do this?
No, but I would spend like 180 days a year in Thailand, months and months. I would be in, and I was I was more doing other people, like people would hire me, or I would be put in a position to do like somebody else's stuff. It wasn't my stuff. I can't really say that like this was mine, right? Where now I can say this was mine, like Apache Junction. Like it was just the force of will to get through it. And like I really dove in. And of course, I had a team. You can't do it without a team, right? There's a lot of people involved in this. But it really, like, if it failed, that's on me. I'm the one that it's like everybody's gonna come to me and be like, dude, you screwed up. So that's what it's. You carry a lot of the weight on your shoulders.
So I'm looking at some of the parallels between Apache Junction and some of your past stuff. I know you said that this is your third film with Saban, but I also noticed that I think the actress's name is Scout.
Yeah.
Scout. She's in another film that you did as well. So I was curious if you kind of brought these things with you, or if it was one of those things that brought you to Apache Junction.
Yeah. So I have worked. This is actually my third movie with Scout. Now I did The Ghost House, which was the movie that had the highest grossing, in
Thailand.
time, right? And Scout's just, she's a very kind, lovely person, a great actor. So she was like the go-to. When I had read Apache Junction, I had pitched Justin Scout, and it was like, and he was like a big fan of Scout. He loved Scout, so it was like a no-brainer. And the same thing with Stuart Townsend too, because Stuart, Stu, he did this movie here, A Stranger in Paradise, and these actors, when they're great actors, and you could enjoy working with them, you could take them anywhere in the world. You want to keep working with them.
Right.
You know,
To kind of mention that you've done a couple you've worked with a couple musically talented actors. Like I know Trace Adkins
yeah.
is in Apache Junction, but you also worked with DMX.
Oh yeah.
So I was curious about what the extent of your work was with DMX and how long ago it ended, because I know that you guys did a movie for this year, right?
Yeah, we did. So DMX was an amazing, human being. It was great to all of our people, and we're very sad about his loss. DMX came through one of my very close friends, James Colin-Bressick, who's also a director, and we had this film. It was called Burnout at the time, and James told me, he's like, you know what, I really feel that DMX would like this role. And that for me, that was like, you know what, that could be really good for this film, and that's going to greenlight it. So I asked James to take DMX the project, and he did. He took him the project, and we ended up, he sat on it for a minute, like stars and celebrities do, but then he came back and he's like, I'm in. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, we got to go. We got to put it all together. And you're just like, sometimes I'm sweating, right? Like, oh, that's okay. That's going to be tough. That's going to be a tight one. But we do it. We prevail. It's literally a force of will.
Well, I know that you had mentioned that you do stuff for like 2 to 3 years after a movie comes out, but how much time do you usually spend? Like, for instance, this is going with Apache Junction. When
Yeah.
did you start working on this project? How long did it take for you to get it going? And is that normal to what it usually is, or did the pandemic kind of slow it down?
Okay. Yeah. So for Apache Junction, when Justin Lee brought me Apache Junction after we shot Final Kill. And when he brought it to me, he was very passionate about it. So because he was so passionate about it, and sales was saying that they track very well domestically, and he just came off of Badlands. It was very Badland. It was very important. That was like kind of triggered the whole, like, we should put the time into this. Now it happened fairly quickly. This was back in 2019, end of 29, mid 2019. So mid 2019 is when we really started going at it. Mid 2019, and then we had it up and running, and then in production March of 2020.
Nice.
Okay. And then we got shut down. COVID.
So not nice. Okay.
Yeah. It was kind of freaky. You know, we started shooting, and, you know, restaurants start closing down. Everything turns into a ghost town. There's rumors everywhere. National Guards being like mobilized. Now crews starting to get, you know, people are getting scared. I have people starting to leave. That's when we start the daily calls with the local government starts calling to check on us. You know, the unions start like, hey, are you guys okay? How's everything? You know, everybody was very supportive. Like the government was supportive, and this, you know, the union was supportive. But then we shot to the point where we just couldn't shoot anymore because of the pandemic. And they nicely called and said, hey, we would appreciate it if you guys would shut down. And so we're like, okay, we shut down. And we're like, oh, we got 6 more days. We have 6 more days of this movie. How are we going to do this? Right? Because, you know, we're on a budget. It was financially wrecked.
And you have people with tight schedules. So, you know, Thomas Jane and Trace Adkins, I can only imagine how that is.
Yeah. Well, here's the blessed point. We intentionally shot Trace Adkins and Thomas Jane the first part of the schedule so that we get those guys out.
That's, you know, that's smart.
You know, we needed to shoot them out. And that was the point. So we shot them out. And then once we did that, all we needed to do was find the time in everybody's busy schedule, because Scout and Stuart are very busy too. So finding time in their schedule to come back, which was very difficult because, you know, we have actors living outside the country. So if they're in, like, you know, then you run into problems with, once they travel and it's COVID, they can't travel back.
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah,
So
the world was crazy last year. I mean, it still is, but yeah, thinking about all the ways that affects the production. When were you able to get those other 6 days done?
December 3rd of 2020. So, and we, what happened was our location in New Mexico, they repainted it and they redid it. They redid the whole location. So we couldn't use it. So we're like, okay, that sucks. Well, we need to figure out, like, how are we going to piece this movie together? So Justin Lee had brought up, he's like, I know of this place in Landers, California, called White Horse Ranch. So we scouted it. It was a little different, but I felt like we had the creative team that would be able to, like, put those puzzle pieces together, and they did it. Like Logan and Justin, and then our editor at the time, Eamon, they all worked together and made it like this seamless, you know, film. And I'm so grateful for what they did.
With the scenery being different, did they have to do VFX to change that in post, or were you guys just able to make it work because, like you said, the creatives are versed in that?
Yeah, correct. They were able to shoot around, and, you know, like the opening scene where you see Scout staring out, you know, out in the desert, in the mountains, that's Landers, California.
So right? That's something you filmed towards the end.
Yeah, that's what we shot in the end of December. That's okay. Landers, you know, and then so she rides into a camp where Trace Adkins is, and that's New Mexico. So that's
The power
the
of editing.
yeah, it is the power of editing.
Nice.
Completely.
So how many projects do you usually juggle at a time? Like you've been working on Apache Junction for a couple of years, but I know you've been doing other things as well. Obviously, we talked
Sure.
about DMX. So what is your workload like usually between films?
Yeah. So even like why we're shooting a movie, I usually have something in post production. I'll have one or two movies in post. I'll have a movie, in development, and then we'll have our production. I'll do 2 to 3 movies a year. Pending like this year, I'll probably do I'll do 2 or 3 films this year. Um, and then we have films that so it's constant. The workload is it's quite fulfilled. Like
Right.
yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, especially when you said like some of the, I mean, most projects you're still working on them way after, the actors and the rest of the crew
Oh
because
yeah.
you're in the financial end of it. So we
Yep.
talked about your past and present. Is there anything in the future that you currently have an ambition to, get to project wise, or are you just kind of going with Apache Junction and what you have going on now to see what that leads you to?
Yeah, you know what? It's you always strive for like more, like better, I don't want to say better cast. I want to say just like, there's financially bigger budgets. Let's put it that way, which, everything costs more at certain points. My goal, like I'd love to do movies like 300 or Lord of the Rings, or, I'm not there yet. I'm getting there. It's like it's a stepping process.
Right.
So as budgets go from 250,000 to 1 million, and then they jump up to 3 million, and they come back down to 2 million, and they go down to 500, and so it's all this range. But I think after Apache, it's really sticking with the higher tier cast, and continue with like it's about the director, the storyteller, because I know that what I could provide that director, it's just continuously finding the best people to get that cast.
Right. So I don't want to keep you too much longer. I just want to know if there's anything you want to plug, anything else that we didn't mention about Apache Junction that you'd like to say, or just, any last notes or social media that you want people to find you on.
Yeah, so like my Instagram is at Daemon Hillin, which would be great. And then, on Apache Junction was probably one of the hardest movies I've ever done in my life. And I just want to thank every single solitary person that was involved, as it was a team effort, and it was in trying times, and everybody came together to make that movie. Every single solitary person, from the director, all the way down to the PAs, to all the EPs, all the financial people, because there's a ton of them. They were the financial people were worried. They're like, how are we gonna? So I really appreciate like Origo Financial and Film Bridge International for sticking with us and believing in us, and that's really important. So it was just a thanks.